Maplewood Heights looked like something pulled from a glossy real estate brochure. Wide streets lined with freshly planted trees, pastel-painted homes with neat white fences, and the gentle hum of sprinklers in the morning made it the picture of American suburbia. Parents waved to each other as they backed out of their driveways. Kids pedaled their bikes in the cul-de-sac, and neighbors exchanged pleasantries while mowing their lawns. It was a community where everyone seemed to know everyone, where crime felt like a distant problem, belonging only to the nightly news. But beneath the polished image of this quiet neighborhood, something far more sinister was brewing. At the heart of Maplewood Heights lived the Turners, a family everyone admired. Richard Turner, a successful contractor, was known for always lending a hand, whether it was fixing a leaky pipe or helping shovel snow during winter storms. His wife, Catherine, was equally beloved, hosting holiday potlucks and organizing block parties that drew the whole street together. Their teenage daughter, Emily, a bright student, often babysat the younger kids. By all appearances, the Turners were the definition of the perfect suburban family. And then, there was their neighbor, Daniel Price. He lived in the house directly next to the Turners, alone. A man in his mid-30s, Daniel was polite but quiet, the kind of neighbor who gave a nod but never lingered to chat. His lawn was neat, his mail always collected, but no one really knew much about him. Rumors occasionally swirled. He worked nights, some said. Others claimed he had a past he didn't talk about. But in Maplewood Heights, curiosity never stretched too far. After all, Daniel seemed harmless. That illusion would soon shatter. The first signs of unease. It started small, unsettling moments that neighbors brushed aside. Catherine once confided to a friend that she thought she saw Daniel standing at his window late at night, staring directly into their backyard as Emily swam in the pool. Another neighbor recalled hearing strange noises from Daniel's garage at odd hours. Drilling, hammering, muffled thuds. But in a community built on trust, those moments were dismissed as paranoia. "He's probably just fixing something," Richard Turner once reassured Catherine. "We can't go around assuming the worst about people." Still, Catherine couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The night it began. On a cool autumn evening in 2017, Emily was home alone while her parents attended a charity dinner across town. Around 9:15 p.m., she FaceTimed her best friend, Sarah, chatting about homework and upcoming homecoming plans. Halfway through the call, Sarah noticed Emily looked distracted, glancing repeatedly at the sliding glass door behind her. "Someone's outside," Emily whispered, her voice shaking. The camera shifted as Emily angled her phone toward the backyard. Through the glass, Sarah swore she saw the faint outline of a man, standing still in the shadows. The call abruptly ended. Sarah immediately tried calling back, but no one answered. Panicked, she dialed 911 and told dispatchers what she had seen. By the time police arrived at the Turner residence, the house was eerily quiet. The sliding glass door was unlocked. Emily was gone, the neighborhood in shock. News of Emily's disappearance spread like wildfire through Maplewood Heights. Neighbors gathered in the street, whispering theories and offering support. Catherine collapsed into tears when police confirmed her daughter was missing, while Richard grew visibly angry, demanding answers. Detectives began canvassing the area, interviewing every resident. And when they reached Daniel Price's door, he greeted them calmly, his expression unreadable. "Yes, I was home," he told them in a steady voice, "but I didn't hear or see anything unusual." Something in his tone unsettled the lead detective, but with no evidence linking him to Emily's disappearance, there was little they could do. For now, a story just beginning. As days turned into weeks, the Turners clung to hope, distributing flyers and speaking to the press. The once safe haven of Maplewood Heights transformed into a place of fear. Parents no longer let their children play outside unattended. Security cameras went up, neighborhood watch groups formed, and suspicion began to spread like wildfire. And still, in the middle of it all, Daniel Price remained. Quiet, watchful, always just a step outside suspicion. But the truth about Daniel, and what really happened to Emily that night, was far darker than anyone could imagine. The killer wasn't a shadow on the street. he was already living among them. On Oak Ridge Drive, the word neighbor carried weight. It wasn't just about the person living next door. It was about trust. Families exchanged holiday cookies, waved in the mornings, and watched each other's kids play in the cul-de-sac. This sense of security was what made the suburban street so desirable. And at the heart of it all was Daniel Miller. Daniel was the neighbor everyone thought they wanted. A 38-year-old accountant, always smiling, always helpful. He shoveled driveways during winter storms, volunteered at block parties, and even coached a little league baseball team. If there was a broken lawnmower or a leaky faucet, Daniel was the first one to offer his tools. To most, he seemed perfect, but perfection often hides something darker. Cracks in the facade. It was the small things that first went unnoticed. Daniel never seemed to have close friends outside the neighborhood. He declined invitations to church events and rarely spoke about his family. When asked about his past, he always changed the subject. Some neighbors described him as too polite, the kind of person who listened but never truly revealed anything about himself. Others brushed off these quirks. After all, who really knew their neighbors completely? But those closest to him noticed moments where his mask slipped. He could become oddly possessive about the children he coached, lingering after games, offering rides no one asked for. A few parents even whispered about his temper when he thought no one was watching. Still, suspicions never stuck. After all, what evidence did anyone have? Daniel remained the reliable, charming face of Oak Ridge Drive. The vanishing. That illusion cracked when Emily Sanders, a 15-year-old high school student, failed to return home one Friday night after hanging out with friends. Panic spread quickly. In a town where kids could ride their bikes without fear, Emily's disappearance was unthinkable. Search parties were organized. Police combed through parks, alleys, and wooded areas. Flyers with Emily's smiling face appeared on every lamppost. Neighbors held vigils, candles glowing against the night sky. Through it all, Daniel was at the center of the effort, passing out flyers, comforting Emily's parents, even coordinating with law enforcement. To everyone watching, he was the epitome of community spirit. But as police began their investigation, a disturbing pattern emerged. Daniel had been one of the last people to see Emily. Multiple witnesses recalled him offering her a ride home the night she vanished. His story didn't quite line up with theirs. Whispers behind closed doors. At first, no one wanted to believe it. Daniel? No, it couldn't be. But when detectives returned again and again to his house, neighbors began to talk. The once quiet cul-de-sac buzzed with whispers of what Daniel might be hiding. It wasn't long before law enforcement discovered troubling details. Daniel had a sealed juvenile record. There were rumors of violence in his past, fights covered up by his parents' influence. Worse, a search warrant revealed something no one on Oak Ridge Drive would ever forget. Inside his home, police uncovered a chilling collection of items. Photographs of neighborhood children, journals filled with disturbing fantasies, and personal belongings that didn't belong to him. The friendly face of Oak Ridge Drive was gone. In its place stood a man no one really knew. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. At first glance, Willow Creek seemed like the last place where anything sinister could hide. Families held barbecues on weekends, kids played kickball in the cul-de-sac, and every lawn was kept in pristine condition. But underneath that glossy surface, little cracks were beginning to show. It started with the small things most people dismissed at first. A missing pet poster tacked onto a lamppost. A car that had been rifled through in the dead of night. The faint smell of something rotten drifting from a storm drain after a summer rain. Each incident seemed unrelated, but for those who paid close attention, the neighborhood was beginning to feel off. One neighbor, Sarah Mitchell, was the first to voice what others were quietly thinking. She noticed the man next door, always so quiet, always so polite, doing strange things at odd hours. The glow of a basement light that stayed on until dawn. Heavy garbage bags dragged to the curb that seemed to weigh far more than ordinary trash. The way he stared, too long, too intense, when she caught his eye across the fence. But in Willow Creek, suspicion was frowned upon. Confrontation wasn't the suburban way. People brushed off Sarah's concerns. "He's just eccentric," they'd say. "Don't make drama where there isn't any." Yet the unease only grew. More children whispered of hearing strange sounds at night, low, muffled screams carried by the wind. Pets disappeared at an alarming rate. One boy even swore he saw someone digging in the woods behind the houses, though his parents quickly silenced him, telling him not to spread wild stories. Behind closed doors, though, families began to whisper, "What if something's wrong? What if Sarah's right?" But just as quickly as the questions surfaced, they were buried beneath the desperate need to preserve the neighborhood's perfect image. The killer next door thrived in that silence. Hidden in plain sight, he fed on the very thing that made Willow Creek so enviable: the trust, the denial, the refusal to believe that something horrifying could live so close. But soon, those cracks in the perfect picture would split wide open, exposing the darkness no one wanted to face. It was a hot July morning when Willow Creek's perfect image finally shattered. Two teenagers, cutting across the woods behind Maple Lane on their way to the park, stumbled upon something they would never forget. At first, they thought it was just a pile of garbage bags dumped in a shallow pit. But the smell, the sickly, overwhelming stench, was something no one could mistake. They ran home screaming, dragging their parents and soon the police into the woods. What officers uncovered sent shockwaves through the entire community. Inside the bags were bones, scraps of clothing, and tufts of fur. Not just one bag, but several, buried hastily in the dirt. The neighborhood went from peaceful to paralyzed in an instant. Rumors spread like wildfire. Parents refused to let their children play outside. People began locking their doors in broad daylight. For the first time, residents of Willow Creek had to face a terrifying possibility. A predator wasn't passing through, he was living among them. And then came the detail that sealed the neighborhood's fear. The clothing found in the pit matched items reported missing from a young woman who had disappeared months earlier while jogging through town. The police launched a massive investigation. They canvassed every home, every basement, every garage. Detectives took statements from neighbors, trying to piece together who might have been responsible. Yet, when they questioned the quiet man living next door, the one Sarah Mitchell had warned about, he smiled politely, answered every question, and offered them iced tea as if nothing was wrong. But there was something about his calmness that didn't sit right with investigators. Why was his basement light always on? Why did his trash bags seem so heavy? And why, above all else, was he the only one who seemed completely unfazed by the horror that had been uncovered practically in his backyard? That was the turning point. The neighborhood could no longer hide behind denial. The mask of perfection was gone, replaced by the grim reality that the killer wasn't a shadowy stranger lurking in the woods. He was one of them, and now the police were watching him very, very closely. The man the neighborhood once described as harmless and ordinary was about to be exposed. Detectives, armed with a warrant, searched his home. At first glance, it looked normal. Clean carpets, family photos, and neatly stacked bookshelves. But the deeper they went, the more the illusion cracked. In the basement, they found something chilling. Hidden behind a false wall was a makeshift room lined with soundproofing. Inside were items belonging to missing people. Jewelry, shoes, and even a driver's license belonging to the jogger whose clothing had been discovered in the woods. The polite neighbor was no longer just odd. He was a predator who had hidden in plain sight for years. Neighbors who once waved to him in the mornings were now reeling in horror. Parents who once trusted him to mow their lawns or help with small repairs now realized they had unknowingly let a killer into their lives. When police confronted him with the evidence, he stayed eerily calm. His only words were, "I wondered how long it would take you." The trial that followed gripped the entire country. Prosecutors painted him as a man who blended perfectly into suburbia while feeding a violent obsession. His victims weren't strangers from distant cities. They were locals, people who had trusted him, who believed Willow Creek was safe. The jury didn't take long. He was convicted on multiple counts of murder, his calm demeanor finally cracking as the sentence of life without parole was read aloud. But even with the conviction, the scars in Willow Creek never truly healed. The neighborhood that once prided itself on trust and safety would forever carry the memory of what had happened in the shadows. And for many, The most haunting part wasn't just what he did. It was how close he had been the entire time. Because sometimes the most dangerous killers aren't the ones hiding in the woods. They're the ones living right next door. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell.